Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Indian section, I welcome you all to our Friday evening study class. Let's all join together in the universal invocation before beginning. O hidden light, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with God know he's also one with every other. So we continue with our studies of K.H. letter to to CWL, commentary by C. Jinaraja Dasa. We probably are ending the first letter, mostly in today's session or the next session. And we have our respected Vibhaji with her clarity and her dedication to help us understand today's session. Thank you so much, Vibhaji, and most welcome.
Thank you, Vimalji, and good evening. Namaste, dear brothers and sisters. So, as you know, we have been studying now the KH letters to CW Leadbeater. And in the previous session, the commentary by C. Jinraj Das was on the phrase, the true man. That was completed with a very profound idea. I'll just repeat that idea. It's very, very profound. I hope you all took the time to think over it. It said that we live and move and have our being in the solar logos. And solar logos is the mainstay of our solar system. But yet beyond him, there are still greater logoi. Beyond the solar logos, there are greater logoi. And the nature of the ultimate reality in which those logoi themselves live and move and have their being. We do not know what it is and what it is not. Okay, so that was such a beautiful idea. We now move on to the commentary on the next significant phrase from the master's letter number 1. And that phrase is, if I were to demand. So I will share my slides with you. So this is the phrase, if I were to demand. And the context of this phrase in the letter number 1 is, C.W. Leadbeater, he had asked the master that what rules I must observe during this time of probation and how soon I might venture to hope that it could begin. And the master answered to him, you have the making of your own future in your own hands, as shown above. And every day you may be weaving its woof. If I were to demand that you should do one thing or the other instead of simply advising, I would be responsible for every effect that might flow from the step, and you acquire but a secondary merit. Think and you will see that this is true. So this is the context. If I were to demand, if the master told CWL to do something, then CWL would not get the entire merit of the action. So let us see what C. Jinraj Das comments on this phrase. He says that these words of the master have a very great significance. Since we are beginners, we want constantly to be guided by those whom we regard as elders. Now, the masters of ancient wisdom, they are regarded as elder brothers of humanity. We are beginners on the path of occultism. And so we seek direction from those who have already tread the path. And our devotion to them is great. Therefore, we are utterly ready to carry out their orders. But in occultism, the problem is not that of blind obedience to the code of another. It is about grasping one's own destiny, as the master says. Okay. Blind obedience to the code of other is like following a set of rules which is laid out by the teacher. But grasping one's own destiny, it means taking hold of So one has to take hold of his destiny and make his own destiny by his own karma. CJ says it is true that in our desire never to err from the path, and especially not to make complications for the work of the master, we feel the need of the advice of an elder. Yet it is the fact that we must ourselves find the true road by our own discrimination and intuition. So this is the aim of treading the path. We have to develop our own spiritual discrimination, that is Vivek. We have to unfold our inner knowledge. We have to know the things intuitively from within. Instead of that, if we are constantly told what to do and what not to do, then the very purpose of treading on the path is defeated. You know, that Vivek will never unfold. So we may and do often err. Nevertheless, if our heart is pure and our motive has been for unselfish service, any error which we make will create, comparatively speaking, only slight karma of confusion and evil. So now we can see why HPB always strongly emphasized on the intent or the motive behind the actions. See, same action, it will create different karmic outputs depending upon the intent behind the action, even if the action was a mistake. So in the master's work, we should always serve unselfishly. We should serve with a pure heart. CJ says that in such cases, any adverse karmic effects due to error on our part, they can be compensated for us by deeds of helpfulness. We should try to set right the wrong which has been done due to an error, to whatever extent possible. We may not be able to set it right completely, but it can be compensated for by our helpful deeds. Then in the meantime, even if we have blundered somewhat, even if we have made an error, we shall have grown in power of decision and discrimination by relying upon ourselves, because we decided upon that action. Okay, so even our mistake is somewhat offset because we have unfolded our power of decision and discrimination. Mr. Leadbeater asked what he was to do in order to be received as a chela. The master does not direct him, for Mr. Leadbeater must act on his own initiative for the operation of karma to be precise and unalloyed. This is as per law of karma. Every action, it will produce a definite and an inescapable reaction. Okay, an inescapable effect. But if that action is performed due to the suggestion or due to the command of some other person, then the karmic effect, whether it is good or bad, it will accrue to that other person. And the person who is taking the action, he will have only a secondary effect. Okay. So that is why master does not want to direct him. Mr. Leadbeater must act on his own initiative. We shall see in the second letter from the master, when Mr. Leadbeater had decided upon his course of action and the master accepts him as a chela, that the master does then specify what are the actions which he requires of his new chela. So first, Mr. Leadbeater has to decide what course of action he wants to take up, whether he wants to continue his work in England, or whether he wants to delay his coming to India, or whether he wants to be whether he wants to give himself as a candidate for chelaship. So it is his decision, his initiative. And once he does that, then the master specifies that what is required of a new chela. But at the early stage of receiving this first letter, when the master explains in outline the problems of probation and of the need to help to save the society. Mr. Leadbeater alone must cast the lot yourself into the lap of justice, never fearing but that its response will be absolutely true. So Mr. Leadbeater had decided to come to India, and the master had outlined that what are the problems and what it is needed to help to save the society. So now Mr. Leadbeater has to cast the lot yourself into the lap of justice. You see, if you have any time played a game where you have to cast a dice, okay? So the number that comes when you throw the dice, that number may lead you to win or it may lead you to lose. But it is of your own making because you threw the dice. So similarly, C.W. Leadbeater has to make his own decision. And that decision, it will be cast in the lap of justice. It will be the action which he will take based on his decision. It will be subject to the law of justice, like any other action. So this is the universal law, which never errs. Its response is absolutely true. Then we move on to the next phrase, that is, shall end in adeptship or failure. The context of this phrase in the letter it is written, Chelaship is an educational as well as probationary stage, and the Chela alone can determine whether it shall end in adeptship or failure. Chelas, from a mistaken idea of our system, too often watch and wait for orders, wasting precious time, which should be taken up with personal effort. So this is what the master had written in his letter. Chela alone has to determine, he can alone determine that whether his probationary stage, it shall end in adeptship or in failure. Now what C. Jinraj Das says on this phrase, his commentary in that he says, the master stated at the end of 1882 that of those would-be chelas who had been put on probation and tested that year, half of them had failed. So that was in the end of 1882. At that time, he had written a letter to Colonel Olcott, and in that the master wrote, why must I even now, to put your thoughts in the right channel, remind you of 3 cases of insanity within 7 months among lay chelas, not to mention one's turning a thief. And the reference is given that this letter was from Mahatma Letters to AP Senate, letter number 67. So in that he had written this statement. So why did those aspirants for chelaship, they fail? Why were there cases of insanity? Why did one aspirant turn a thief? So see, when somebody offers himself for chelaship, there are certain qualifications which are expected in him. In fact, there was this article, Chelas and Lay Chelas, written by HPB in the Theosophist of 1883. I'm not sure of the date, but around that period. And these qualifications which are expected in for someone who's offering himself for chelaship, they are as given in their book number 4 of Kyute. Kiute, Kyute. In that, there is a chapter on the laws of upasans. So that chapter, it states what qualifications a would-be chela should have. And among that, absolute mental and physical purity is required. Okay. So now all these members of the society, they were convinced that if other men, if they could become adepts, like the Mahatmas, so then these people too might reach that same goal by following the same path. And therefore, they were pressing the masters to take them as chelas. And master is, so benevolent. He says that it would be an interference in the karma to deny them the chance. So he's giving them this chance to try for adeptship. So he wants to take them as chela. But he also mentions that there is an unalterable occult law which operates in nature, due to which these chelas, they failed. They turned out really very sorry specimens of morality. See, thieving and becoming insane. So these are very, very gross failures. So what is that occult law? That occult law, by that, anybody who will undertake to become a chela, by that very act, he rouses every sleeping passion of his animal nature. See, it is in the subconscious, it is hidden. Outside, they appear to be very good people, respectable people in the society, but they don't know what is in their own subconscious. Okay, so the law is that the moment they try to become a chela, all those sleeping passions, they are aroused. And the strife is between the chela's will and his carnal nature. His will and his personality, the carnal nature. So the results were far from encouraging. And 3 of those lay chelas, they became insane in 7 months. And one became a defaulter after he absconded with his employer's money. These details are all given in that article, Chelas and Lay Chelas by HPP. So here we see that C.W. Leadbeater is also aspiring to become a chela of the Mahatma. And he will also have to go through the same trials and tests in which several other candidates had not been successful. Okay, so that is why this example C. Jinraj Das has given. Referring to one of these who desired to be accepted as a chela by the Master M, the Master K.H. writes, the option of receiving him or not as a regular chela remains with the Chauhan. M has simply to have him tested, tempted, and examined by all and every means so as to have his real nature drawn out. So he's tested in such a way that his real nature, which is dormant right now, that is drawn out. This is a rule with us as inexorable as it is disgusting in your Western side. Western people don't agree to this type of testing. So that is why they abhor this kind of testing. And I could not prevent it even if I would. So Mahatma K.H. could not prevent. That is the rule. Everyone has to be tested. It is not enough to know thoroughly what the chela is capable of doing or not doing at the time and the circumstances during the period of probation. We have to know of what he may become capable under different and every kind of opportunity. So this statement of the master, this all has been taken from the Mahatma letters to AP Senate, letter number 30. Now these letter numbers, they are from the Barker series. Okay, if you want to refer to those letters, you can. And we see here in the slide that C. Jinraj Das has given another reference from this Mahatma letters to AP Senate. It concerns the testing of Mr. Fern. If you remember, while we were studying this Mahatma letters to AP Senate, Mr. Fern, he was secretary of A.O. Hume. And he was being considered for chelaship because of his highly receptive psychic faculties. He had those psychic faculties. And Master thought that he may prove useful in the work of the society. So the Mahatmas accepted him probationally and they tested him. They wanted to test, tempt, and draw out his latent inner nature, his real nature. For this testing, all means are utilized as they are deemed fit. Even using the influence of deceptive entities like Dugpas, if needed, that is also done. And these people from the West, from Europe, they may disagree vehemently. They may not agree to this kind of testing, that you're tempting somebody with some, influence of other entities. But his future potential also needs to be examined. Okay, this rule of testing, it is unalterable. The Mahatmas not only need to test his capabilities, the candidate's capabilities as they are at present, but they also need to gauge his future potential. That has to be examined. And therefore, all means of testing are used. Masters have to know what he may become capable of under very different circumstances in the future, different opportunities in the future, of which, we have no idea at all. So that is why they resort to all this testing. Now, Mr. Fern, he also eventually failed his probation, and C.W. Leadbeater probably would have to face a similar testing. And we know that what all kinds of situations and difficult tests C.W. Leadbeater had to face. So, explaining that this process of testing is applied to all and referring to yet another failure in another letter, that of an Englishman who was converted to Mohammedanism, Murad Ali Beg, the master writes, "What happened to Fern has befallen everyone else who has preceded and will befall with various results everyone who succeeds him." That means before and after. Before and after Fern, all those who tried for Chelaship, they were tested and they met with similar results. The master says, "We were all so tested, and while a Murad Ali failed, I succeeded." Master KH, he succeeded. That's why he is the Mahatma. Now, this is a reference from Mahatma letter to AP Senate, letter number 54. So here we see that Jinraj Das ji has given yet another example of a failed probationary chela, Murad Ali Beg. This person, Murad Ali Beg, his real name was Godolphin Mitford, and he had converted to Islam. So when he went through all these occult studies, his mind really, it was, unbalanced. It became unbalanced, unhinged. So this eventually led to his insanity. And he was actually disqualified from the society's membership when he attempted to attack Madame Blavatsky with a sword. Just imagine it, attacking Madame Blavatsky with a sword. So emphasis here is on that every candidate for chelaship is tested, and this includes the master himself. Before they became adepts, before, they were also on probation, they were also similarly tested. But while others failed, Master KH succeeded. So it is not that everyone fails, but very few, the rare inflorescence, very few, the flowers of humanity, they succeed. So chelaship is really an educational as well as a probationary stage, and the chela alone can determine whether it shall end in adeptship or failure. So little wonder then that the master wrote, "Sigh not for chelaship, pursue not that, the dangers and hardships of which are unknown to you." Now this is a very important slide, okay? Chelaship is not for everyone, and that is what master is writing. Don't hanker after chelaship. Chelaship is not a path for everyone to tread. All are not fitted for its dangers and hardships. Verily, many are the chelas offering themselves to us, and as many have failed this year as were accepted on probation. So that was the year 1883. All of those who applied for chelaship, offered themselves to the masters, they have failed. Now, why did they fail? Because chelaship unveils the inner man and draws forth the dormant virtue as well as the dormant vice. Latent vice begets active sins and is often followed by insanity. Latent vice begets active sins. Whatever is hidden, person is acting, he has put on a facade, he is acting very presentable to the society, but that becomes active. Okay, and often he becomes insane. So as we have already seen all those above examples of the failed probationers, the candidates, they all put on very respectable facade of personality. But when they are tested, they are put under illusion and temptation and influence of deceptive entities. And their subconscious nature, it comes to the surface, whatever is hidden in that. So, Master says, throw a glance round, make an inquiry at Bareilly and Kanpur, and judge for yourself. So many candidates from those regions who had offered themselves for chelaship, they tried, but they failed their probation with very, very sorry results. So then if Master is advising that chelaship is not for everyone, then what should a sincere member of the Theosophical Society aspire for? Okay. For them, Master says, be pure, virtuous, and lead a holy life, and you will be protected. See, these are the words of the masters. What should a sincere person or a member, what should he do? If chelaship is not for all, be pure, virtuous, and lead a holy life. We have to contemplate on each word of this. What is meant by purity? What is meant by virtue to you? What do you think your life when you say to lead a holy life? Okay, and then you will be protected. So each characteristic you have to follow. Now, he says, but remember, he who is not as pure as a young child, better leave chelaship alone. And this statement of the master, it is from, again, no, it is from the letters from the Master of Wisdom, first series, letter number 9. So it is not from letters to AP Senate. It is from the Masters of the Wisdom, first series.
फर्स्ट सीरीज का लेटर नंबर 9
Letter number 9.
लेटर नंबर 9 इसका
Yes.
फर्स्ट सीरीज का लेटर नंबर 9 बोला है
Yeah, kindly mute yourself.
म्यूट नहीं है शायद
आपका म्यूट करो ना
कैसे करूं
Okay, so here again we see chelaship will prove dangerous for those people who are not as pure as a young child. A child is very innocent. He has no malice, no malice in his heart, and his mind is pure. A child, he understands love. You know, even a very, very young infant who doesn't know to talk, he will understand love. He's very trusting. But as the child grows, his mind becomes of the world. It is influenced and conditioned by it, and the purity is lost. The candidate can safely traverse the path of chelaship if he regains that childlike nature. So further, C. Jinraj Das has written, during the period that I have been closely connected with the work of the masters, there have been among the pupils of the masters 3 suicides and 1 attempted suicide. Just imagine, Theosophy teaches suicide is among the worst things that one can do to himself. And this is clearly explained when in the teaching about what is death and what are the after death states. So, you know, depending on how the death took place and how the cycle of reincarnation takes place, we have studied in these theosophical teachings that suicide is the worst thing which a person can do to himself. And yet, these would-be chelas, the aspirants, they committed suicide. A pupil of the master, he would surely be knowing all this, the repercussions. But such is the occult effect on that unprepared student that he commits suicide. So you can see even aspiring for chelaship, offering yourself for chelaship is not a very safe proposition if you do not have the clarity, if you are not prepared, if you don't have the qualifications. Okay. Unprepared student, he commits suicide. Now, as to those whose failures have taken other forms, their number is legion. Innumerable number is legion. Okay. So they didn't commit suicide, but their failure have taken other forms. Quite a few of those other forms of failure, they are outlined in that article by HPB, Chelas and lay Chelas. And that article, it was printed in the Theosophist of July 1883. And among those, insanity, monetary fraud, gross debauchery, adultery, moral misconduct, criminal conduct, and many more are listed. So these are the other ways in which those candidates failed, a huge number. The occult law, it turned their latent vices into active sins. So it is still true as of old. Many be called, but few chosen. So many come aspiring for chelaship, but chelaship is not for everyone. Very few are fitted to traverse this arduous path. In fact, in my interaction with so many members of the society, not only in India, but even out of India, I have come across some members of the Theosophical Society who have this mistaken notion that joining the Theosophical Society means you have to become a chela of the master. That is not necessary. It is not required or compulsory. One can be a member of the Theosophical Society and he doesn't have to become a chela. Master himself has said that he needs to be pure, virtuous, and lead a holy life. That will protect him. And that itself will lead to his spiritual progress. So, coming back to this case of C.W. Leadbeater. C.W. Leadbeater, he wanted to become a chela of Master K.H. And now we go to the next phrase from the Master's letter, in which C. Jinraj Das explains chelas from a mistaken idea of our system. Now this phrase, it is given in letter number 1 in the context. Chelaship is an educational as well as probationary stage, and the chela alone can determine whether it shall end in adeptship or failure. Chelas from a mistaken idea of our system too often watch and wait for orders, wasting precious time which should be taken up with personal effort. So instead of taking their own initiative, they are waiting for orders because they have not understood the system leading to adeptship or arhatship. Okay, they have a mistaken idea of this system that leads to adeptship. So here is the commentary from C. Jinraj Das on this phrase. He says, the idea prevalent in India of the relation between guru, that is teacher, and his shishya, that is pupil, implies that the pupil is on attendance on his teacher, ready to serve him in every way. With this conception goes the corollary that the pupil must do nothing without his teacher's instructions. All this is reasonable if one starts with the notion that the pupil's task is to be a humble server of the master. Okay, so this was the prevailing idea at that time, says C. Jinraj Das. But it makes sense only if the student has to be a mere server. He is merely attending on his masters and he obeys the orders of the masters. Okay, but in occultism, this idea is somewhat different. A master of the wisdom does not require a band of disciples around him to serve him in his personal needs, nor to be merely pupils to be taught by him religion and philosophy in return. So a pupil is in no way a personal attendant of the teacher, nor does he have to be taught religion and philosophy like some academic subjects. in return by the master. That is not the way this system works. Instead, an adept is fundamentally by his status an agent in the plan of the logos. For him, it is the fact that I and my Father are one. Now, this is one of the most important statements which has been made here. An adept is fundamentally by his status an agent in the plan of the logos. For him, it is a fact that I and my Father are one. So what is the plan of the logos? The plan of the logos is evolution. And the adept becomes an executive agent. He's executive agent in the plan by his status due to the fact, the level to which he has evolved. So due to that status, he is an executive agent of the plan. So what is his status? His status is that he is one with his Father. This is the crux of the matter. This is his status. I and my Father are one. And this is given by the statement which is written here. And HPP has explained this statement at length in the Secret Doctrine. So I'll give you a very brief idea of what that means. Now, Father here, it refers to the Dhyani Buddha. Dhyani Buddha, or the star, under which a human entity is born. Now see, why the term human entity? Because man has a septenary constitution. So we are not talking about this personality. We are talking about the whole human entity, the septenary man. He is born under a star, which is his Dhyani Buddha. That is referred as the Father. I and my Father are one. And that star will forever remain his star throughout this whole Manvantar. It is concerned and connected with his individuality. So that star or the Father or the Dhyani Buddha, he is connected and concerned with the individuality of that human entity. We have another star which we say these astrological stars. They are concerned and connected with the personality. Okay, that is astrological star of a person. But this star or the Father which we are talking of, it is the star concerned with the individuality. And Theosophy teaches now, so what do we know about this Dhyani Buddha? Theosophy teaches there are 7 groups of Dhyan Chohans, and they are basically the 7 primeval rays of the second logos. That is the 7 sons of light, the 7 rays. Okay. They are actually the primeval monads. Monad is Atma Buddhi, the higher 2 principles, the 7th and 6th principle, that is the monad. So these 7 sons of light, they are the primeval monads. They belong to the incorporeal world, that is the Arup world. So there, they are intelligences. These monads or the Dhyan Chohans, they are intelligences which don't have a shape and don't have a name because they belong to the Arup world. Okay. Of course, in esoteric philosophy, they have some names. There are 7 distinct names. But in our exoteric world, exoteric system, they have no name, no shape. And these Dhyani Buddhas, they emanate or they create from themselves. How do they create? By dhyan, Dhyani Buddha. So by dhyan or by virtue of contemplation, meditation, they create from themselves the superhuman bodhisattva. Superhuman bodhisattva. Okay, so they are creating by their contemplation. So what they are creating, the superhuman bodhisattva, they are mind-born sons. Rings a bell? That is the Manasputra. So these Manasputra or the superhuman bodhisattva, they incarnate at the beginning of every human cycle on earth as mortal men. That is the Manasputra, they incarnate in the tabernacle of the human form. So this is the cosmic hierarchy of the divine origin of man. And that is the reason that Dhyani Buddha is the father of man, as given in that phrase. Okay? Because through his emanation, these Manasputra are created who incarnate in the human being. Right? So this is true for every human being. All adepts and all human beings each have their Dhyani Buddha. It is called their elder twin or their father soul. The only difference is we are not aware of it, but the adept knows it. And at the last and supreme initiation of the adept, they learn it and they are placed face to face with that bright image. So I think this is given in Light on the Path. Okay, in the last initiation, how the aspirant or the person, the yogi who is aspiring to be the adept, at the last initiation, he comes face to face with the bright image of his own higher self. That is his father. I and my father are one because it is his own higher self. So actually, this is the goal of the adept, to evolve to his divine monadic self in the cosmic hierarchy. And you can see that monadic self is so high up in the hierarchy, very close to the level of the logos. And that is his status, the status of the adept. Being so high up in the hierarchy, by virtue of his status, he becomes, therefore, an organizer. Did I miss a slide? No. Okay. He becomes an organizer of the divine energies. He becomes a distributing station of the powers which the plan of the logos holds for mankind. So that is the meaning of that statement. I and my father are one. That is the status of the adept. And thus he is an executive agent of the divine plan. The goal of the candidate. Now you see the aspirants who are offering themselves for this chelaship. Their goal is also to become an adept. And this is the status they want to attain. So how can this path be an easy one? It's a very, very hard path, a very arduous path. And therefore, a master, he does not seek mere disciples, but rather he seeks apprentice who can be swiftly trained to be efficient and reliable assistants. See, two characteristics, efficient and reliable. For example, in our day-to-day life, the students who are doing their final year of graduation, they go out for internships, right? They have studied everything, but still they are going for internships to companies so that they can attune their skills with the industry's requirements and they can increase their employability, right? So that is why they go for internship. So somewhat like that, the disciple has to become an apprentice. He has to unfold his inner capability, his consciousness and power. They have to unfold so that he can assist his master efficiently and reliably. And in what he has to assist? In working out the plan of the logos. Master is the executive agent of the plan of the logos. And this candidate, the chela, he has to become his assistant. Efficiency and reliability, they are paramount. Therefore, the disciple must necessarily become attuned to the spirit of every thought and deed of their chief. Chief here can mean either the master or also the chela's own divine self, his Dhyani Buddha. They must undergo, that is the chela, they must undergo a definite training and an exacting discipline. See, definite training and exacting discipline. Because efficiency and reliability, it can come only with such training and discipline. Whether it is for serving in the cosmic plan or whether it is for serving here in the world. Okay. For example, take the defense forces in the country. In our own country, consider the National Defense Academy, NDA, or consider the Indian Military Academy. These institutes, they put the cadets through very rigorous training to prepare them for their work. So similar definite training and exacting discipline, it is needed on the path of discipleship for the entire human constitution, for the physical constitution, the mental constitution, and spiritual constitution. That training and discipline is needed. Okay. So, just as the master himself is an agent of the divine plan, so also each disciple of his become quickly an agent of the master's plan in that department of the great work which is entrusted to the master's care. So Logos plan is vast, and only part of it, a certain department of it, it is entrusted to the master. And the candidate, he must quickly become an assistant to help his master. So what is required from the pupil? A pupil needs, on the one hand, to be docile. That is, be what the Latin word describes, teachable. Teachable means to be receptive to the teaching. What is being taught to you, you should be able to learn. So that is docile, to be receptive. But also on the other hand, he must show initiative. So don't waste precious time waiting for orders from the master. Take initiative. For the pupil himself is also someday to become a master. That is an adept. And what is the status of an adept in the cosmic hierarchy? We have just now seen. Okay. So therefore, he must possess a capacity to direct and command. This is leadership quality, to be able to direct and command. Certainly, a master gives directions to a pupil, and sometimes, as we shall see in the second letter received by Mr. Leadbeater, very precise directions. In the main, however, a master outlines the work to be done by the pupil and what are the final results which he expects from that work. But he leaves the pupil alone to make his own experiments regarding how he will achieve the objective set before him. Okay. So the work is outlined and the end result which is to be achieved, that is mentioned. But how you have to achieve it, it is left to the pupil alone. One can study the example of Madame Blavatsky. She was a pupil and a messenger of the masters. And after her training in Tibet, she was sent out. She was given this task to give these theosophical teachings to the world. The aim was same, to assist in the master's plan of spiritual upliftment of humanity. So that is how she was assisting the masters. And the task was to give out these theosophical teachings. But it was left to her to start the Theosophical Society and to achieve the objective. Although sometimes she was given very specific directions, it has been mentioned that how much knowledge has to be revealed and no more. So that was all that she was allowed to write in Isis Unveiled or even in the Secret Doctrine. Okay. So there is a lot of freedom. There is a lot of what we say, empowerment. You have to take your initiative and do the work. But then again, there are very precise directions about what you can do, what you cannot do. Now, all this, it throws open upon the pupil a responsibility, which the pupil thinks he cannot bear. He would far rather that the master gave orders affecting all that the pupil is to do. Why? Because it seems very easy when someone tells you what to do and you simply have to do it. You don't have to apply your own brain. So this of course would make the pupil a mere mechanical tool of the master, which is the last thing which any master desires. Constantly today in India, would-be workers for the Theosophical Society come to some of us and say, I have come to serve. Will you tell me what to do? When in reply we ask the question, what can you do? The unsatisfactory reply is, is given anything, which is an indication to an experienced employer that the applicant for work is inefficient in most things, though full of willingness to serve. So this is at the time when CJ was the president. And he would have these candidates coming to him and say that, what can I do? So though they are willing to serve, but he says that they are inefficient in most things. And that is why self-initiative is very important. Even now, see, these are members. They are not chelas. We are members. But we can take initiative based on our capacity. For example, one can take up translation of the theosophical literature into the local language. People understand better in the local language, the people around you. Okay, so undertake translation. Take up work based on the requirements of your lodge, what your lodge requires. Okay, so there are many ways to take initiative. One just needs to have that will to serve rather than waiting for some order or guidance. Now, in occultism, the pupil, while always docile, that is teachable and eager to obey every command of his master and alert to every suggestion made to him, has ever to be ready to devise and carry through his own plans as he tries to serve the master. So there is so much emphasis on that the pupil has to take initiative. Hence the master's words, chelas, from a mistaken idea of our system, too often watch and wait for orders, wasting precious time, which should be taken up with personal effort. Okay, so in this letter, Master clearly mentions that our cause needs missionaries, devotees, agents, and perhaps even martyrs. But it cannot demand of any man to make himself either. This has been mentioned in the letter. So, Master is telling what is the requirement of our cause, of this cause of theosophy. They need missionaries, they need devotees, they need agents. HPB was an agent. Perhaps they even need martyrs, someone who is ready to sacrifice their life. But they don't demand any man for all this. Okay, so the chela, he has ample opportunity to show initiative in all these things to meet the needs of the cause. And with this, the commentary for that previous phrase is over. And the next phrase is there, our Lord's, the Tathagat's memory. In fact, I wanted to cover part of it, but I think it's already time. Otherwise, we won't have much time.
Yes, Vibhaji.
Yeah, Hindi translation.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Little said.
stop here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Vibhaji. And what a beautiful explanation. You took us right to the top, Dhyan Chauhan's, and brought us down to the work that we have to do, and then the article of Chela and Chelaship. So really wonderful. Now I invite Sushma ji to give us the translation in Hindi.
थैंक यू विभा जी, थैंक यू विमल जी। आज हम महात्मा KH द्वारा CW लेडबिटर को लिखे गए पहले पत्र का 7वां भाग का अध्ययन कर रहे हैं और जिसकी कमेंट्री श्री जिनराज दास जी ने लिखी है। आज की प्रस्तुति में पहला वाक्यांश है, इफ आई वर टू डिमांड, अगर मैं मांग करूं या मांग की इच्छा करूं। गुरु के इन शब्दों का बहुत महत्व है। चूंकि अभी हमारी शुरुआत है, इसलिए हम हमेशा अपने वरिष्ठ लोगों से मार्गदर्शन चाहते हैं तथा उनके प्रति हमारी श्रद्धा प्रबल है। अतः इसलिए हम उनके आदेशों का पालन करने के लिए पूरी तरह तत्पर हैं। हालांकि गु विद्या में समस्या यह है कि हम दूसरे का अंधानुकरण नहीं करना है, बल्कि अपने भाग्य को स्वयं समझना है। ग्रेस्पिंग वंस ओन डेस्टिनी, जैसा कि गुरुदेव के पत्र में ये निष्कर्ष रूप में वो कहते हैं कि यह भी सत्य है कि हम चाहते हैं कि हम मार्ग से न हटें और गुरुदेव के कार्य में व्यवधान न डालें। अतः हमें किसी वरिष्ठ के सलाह की आवश्यकता होती है। फिर भी सत्य यह है कि हमें अपने विवेक और अंतर्दृष्टि से अपना मार्ग खोजना होगा। हम अक्सर गलती करते हैं, किंतु हमारा हृदय यदि शुद्ध है और हमारा उद्देश्य निस्वार्थपूर्ण है, तो हमारी कोई भी गलती भ्रम एवं बुराई का केवल मामूली कर्म ही उत्पन्न करेगी और उसकी भरपाई हम दूसरों की मदद करके कर सकते हैं। इसी बीच भले ही हमने कुछ गलतियां की हों, लेकिन हम स्वयं पर भरोसा करके निर्णय लेने एवं विवेक की शक्ति को वृद्धि करेंगे। जब मिस्टर लेडबिटर से पूछा गया कि उन्हें चेला के रूप में स्वीकार किए जाने के लिए क्या करना है, तो गुरुदेव ने उन्हें कोई निर्देश नहीं दिया, क्योंकि कर्म की प्रक्रिया सटीक एवं शुद्ध रहे, इसके लिए लेडबिटर को स्वयं ही पहल करनी होगी, उन्हें स्वयं ही इनिशिएटिव लेना होगा। हम गुरुदेव के दूसरे पत्र में देखेंगे, जब लेडबिटर ने अपनी कार्य योजना तय कर ली थी और गुरु ने उन्हें शिष्य के रूप में यानी चेला के रूप में स्वीकार कर लिया था, तब गुरुदेव को नए शिष्य से क्या उम्मीद होती है उसका वह स्पष्ट उल्लेख करते हैं। लेकिन पहला पत्र प्राप्त करने के प्रारंभिक दौर में जब गुरुदेव परिवीक्षा यानी प्रोबेशन की चुनौतियों और सोसाइटी को संरक्षित करने की योजना के विषय में संक्षेप में बताते हैं और कहते हैं कि मिस्टर लेडबिटर को स्वयं ही न्याय की गोद में अपना भाग्य निर्भय होकर सौंप देना चाहिए और यह विश्वास करते हुए कि न्याय का उत्तर बिल्कुल सही होगा। दूसरा वाक्यांश है, इसका अंत या तो एडेप्टशिप में या फिर विफलता में होगा। शैल एंड इन द एडेप्टशिप और फेलियर। गुरुदेव ने 1882 के अंत में कहा था कि इस वर्ष परिवीक्षा यानी प्रोबेशन में रखे गए भावी शिष्यों में यानी वुड बी चेला में से आधे असफल रहे। कर्नल ऑलकॉट को लिखे पत्र में गुरुदेव लिखते हैं कि मुझे अभी भी अपने आपके विचारों को सही दिशा देने के लिए और यह बताना पड़ रहा है कि न्यू चेला में 7 महीने में पागलपन के 3 मामले आए हैं और एक की तो बात ही छोड़ दीजिए जो चोर बन गया। ये उल्लेख है द महात्मा लेटर्स टू एपी सेनेट लेटर नंबर 67। गुरुदेव इनमें से एक का जिक्र करते हैं जो गुरुदेव एम का चेला बनने के इच्छुक हैं। उसके संबंध में मास्टर केएच कहते हैं कि उन्हें नियमित चेला यानी रेगुलर चेला के तौर पर स्वीकार करने या न करने का निर्णय चौहान का है। गुरुदेव एम तो बस हर तरह से उसकी परीक्षण और उनकी जांच वह करते हैं, उनकी जांच करनी होगी ताकि उसका असली स्वभाव सामने आ सके। यह हमारे यहाँ एक अटल नियम है जो आपकी पश्चिमी दृष्टि में बड़ा घृणित या डिस्गस्टिंग है, लेकिन मैं इसे चाहकर भी नहीं रोक सकता। यह जानना ही पर्याप्त नहीं है कि शिष्य परिवीक्षा की अवधि के दौरान इस समय की परिस्थितियों में क्या कर सकता है और क्या नहीं। हमें यह भी जानना होगा कि प्रोबेशन काल में विभिन्न परिस्थितियों में वह शिष्य क्या करने में सक्षम है। द महात्मा लेटर्स टू एपी सेनेट लेटर नंबर 30। गुरुदेव यह भी समझाते हैं कि परीक्षण की यह प्रक्रिया सभी पर लागू होती है। एक अन्य पत्र में एक और विफलता का जिक्र करते हैं कि जिसमें एक अंग्रेज ने इस्लाम धर्म अपना लिया, वह था मुराद अली बेग। मास्टर लिखते हैं, उनका नाम था मुराद अली बेग। मास्टर लिखते हैं कि फर्न के साथ जो हुआ वही पहले के अन्य व्यक्तियों के साथ हुआ और उसके बाद आने वाले हर व्यक्तियों के साथ भी कुछ विभिन्न परिणामों के साथ वही होगा। हम सभी की ऐसी ही परीक्षा हुई थी, जहां मुराद अली असफल रहे वहां मैं यानी मास्टर केएच सफल रहे। यह बात महात्मा लेटर्स टू एपी सेनेट लेटर नंबर 54 में अंकित है। इसलिए इसमें कोई आश्चर्य की बात नहीं कि गुरुदेव ने लिखा है कि चेला बनने विदिन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा चेला बनने की इच्छा न करें, उस राह पर मत चलो जिसके खतरे और कठिनाइयां तुम्हें ज्ञात नहीं है। निश्चय ही अनेक शिष्य हमारे समक्ष हमको सेवाएं अर्पित कर रहे हैं। इस वर्ष जितने शिष्यों को परिवीक्षा यानी प्रोबेशन के लिए स्वीकार किया था, उनमें से उतने ही असफल भी हुए। चेला बनने से मनुष्य का भीतरी रूप उजागर होता है और सुप्त सद्गुणों के साथ सुप्त दुर्गुण भी उजागर होते हैं। सुप्त दुर्गुण सक्रिय पापों को जन्म देते हैं और अक्सर पागलपन की ओर ले जाते हैं। आप चारों ओर नजर डालें, मास्टर कहते हैं, बरेली एवं कानपुर में जाकर जानकारी एकत्र करें और स्वयं ही निर्णय लें कि पवित्र एवं सद्गुणी बने तथा पवित्र जीवन जिए तो आप सुरक्षित रहेंगे। परंतु याद रखो कि जो शिशु के समान पवित्र न हो उसके लिए शिष्यत्व से दूर रहना ही बेहतर है। यह है लेटर फ्रॉम द मास्टर ऑफ द विजडम की फर्स्ट सीरीज में। गुरुदेव लिखते हैं, इस पत्र में लिखा है कि गुरुदेव के कार्यों से मेरे घनिष्ठ रूप से जुड़ी रहने के दौरान उनके शिष्यों यानी एस्पिरेंट्स में से 3 ने आत्महत्या की और 1 ने आत्महत्या का प्रयास किया, और जिन लोगों की असफलताएं हैं वो विभिन्न रूपों में सामने आई और उनकी संख्या तो कहीं ज्यादा है। यह बात आज भी उतनी सत्य है जितनी पहले थी। विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा, बहुत से लोग बुलाए जाते हैं किंतु कुछ ही चुने जाते हैं। एक अन्य फ्रेज है, फ्रॉम ए मिस्टेक आइडिया ऑफ आवर सिस्टम, हमारी कार्य प्रणाली के संबंध में गलत धारणा। भारत में गुरु एवं शिष्य के मध्य प्रचलित धारणा यह है कि शिष्य अपने गुरु की सेवा में तत्पर रहता है और हर तरह से उनकी सेवा करने हेतु तैयार रहता है। इस धारणा के साथ यह भी निष्कर्ष निकलता है कि शिष्य अपने गुरु के निर्देशों के बिना कुछ भी नहीं करना चाहिए। यह सब तर्कसंगत तब लगता है कि जब कोई यह माने कि शिष्य का कर्तव्य गुरुदेव का विनम्र सेवक बनना है। लेकिन गुप्त विद्या में यह विचार भिन्न है। ज्ञान के गुरुओं को अपने व्यक्तिगत कार्य हेतु शिष्यों के समूह की आवश्यकता नहीं होती और न ही उन्हें सिर्फ ऐसे शिष्य चाहिए जिन्हें बदले में उन्हें धर्म एवं दर्शन की शिक्षा दी जाए। एक सिद्ध पुरुष यानी एडेप्ट मूलतः ईश्वर की योजना में एक माध्यम होता है और उनके लिए यह तथ्य सर्वथा सत्य है विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा कि मैं और मेरे पिता एक हैं। इसलिए वह दिव्य शक्ति की योजना में एक आयोजक यानी एक एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑर्गेनाइजर है और उन शक्तियों का वितरण केंद्र भी होता है जो ईश्वरी विधान की मानवता के लिए निर्धारित की गई थी उस योजना में। इसलिए गुरु सिर्फ शिष्य ही नहीं बल्कि ऐसे प्रशिक्षुओं यानी ऐसे अप्रेंटिसेस की तलाश करते हैं जिन्हें शीघ्रता से प्रशिक्षित करके कुशल यानी एफिशिएंट और विश्वसनीय यानी रिलायबल सहायक बनाया जा सके। इन प्रशिक्षुओं को अपने गुरुदेव यानी अपने चीफ के हर विचार और कर्म की भावना को आत्मसात यानी एट्यून्ड करना अनिवार्य रूप से आना चाहिए। इसलिए उन्हें एक निश्चित प्रशिक्षण और कठोर अनुशासन से गुजरना पड़ता है। लेकिन जैसे गुरुदेव स्वयं एक दिव्य योजना यानी डिवाइन प्लान के माध्यम है, वैसे ही उनके प्रत्येक शिष्य को शीघ्र ही उस महान कार्य के में गुरु की योजनाओं में एक माध्यम बनना होगा जिसे गुरु की देखरेख में सौंपा गया है। एक शिष्य को एक और तो विनम्र होना चाहिए यानी लैटिन शब्द के अनुसार टीचेबल सीखने की योग्य, और दूसरी ओर उसे पहल करने वाला यानी उसमें इनिशिएटिव की क्षमता होनी चाहिए क्योंकि शिष्य को भी एक दिन गुरु बनना है। इसलिए उसे निर्देश और आदेश डायरेक्ट और कमांड देने की क्षमता आनी चाहिए। निश्चित रूप से गुरुदेव शिष्य को निर्देश देते हैं और वो कभी कभी तो बहुत सटीक निर्देश देते हैं जिसे हम लेडबिटर को मिले दूसरे पत्र में देखेंगे। हालांकि गुरुदेव मुख्य रूप से उस कार्य की रूपरेखा बनाते हैं जिसे शिष्य को करना है और उस कार्य योजना में क्या अंतिम परिणाम की आकांक्षा वह रखते हैं वह यह भी बताते हैं, लेकिन साथ ही वह शिष्य को निर्धारित लक्ष्य हासिल करने के लिए अपनी कार्य योजना बनाने के लिए स्वतंत्र छोड़ देते हैं। इससे शिष्य पर ऐसा दायित्व हो जाता है जिसे वह सोचता है कि वह पूरा नहीं कर सकता। वह तो यही चाहता है कि गुरुदेव उसे कार्य हेतु आदेश दें, लेकिन इससे तो वह गुरुदेव का मात्र एक यंत्र बनकर यानी मैकेनिकल टूल बनकर रह जाएगा एवं गुरु ऐसा नहीं चाहते। गुरु कहते हैं कि आज भारत में थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी में काम करने के इच्छुक लोग अक्सर हमारे पास आकर कहते हैं विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा मैं सेवा करने आया हूँ, क्या आप मुझे बताएंगे कि मुझे क्या करना है। जब हम उसका उत्तर पूछते हैं कि विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा कि आप क्या कर सकते हैं, तो उनका असंतोषजनक उत्तर मिलता है विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा कुछ भी। तो एक अनुभवी नियोजक यानी एम्प्लॉयर को यह संकेत मिल जाता है कि वह अभ्यर्थी यानी एप्लीकेंट कार्य करने की इच्छा के बावजूद अधिकांश कार्यों में सक्षम नहीं है। गुह विद्या में शिष्य हमेशा विनम्र यानी डोसाइल यानी सीखने के लिए तत्पर, गुरु के आदेश पालन के लिए उत्सुक और सुझाव के प्रति सतर्क रहता है, लेकिन उसे गुरु की सेवा हेतु अपनी योजनाएं बनाने और उसे पूर्ण करने हेतु तैयार रहना चाहिए। इसलिए गुरु के शब्द हैं कि चेला विद इन इन्वर्टेड कॉमा, चेला हमारी कार्य प्रणाली के विषय में गलत धारणा रखने के कारण अक्सर आदेशों की प्रतीक्षा करते हैं, जिससे उनका बहुमूल्य समय व्यर्थ जाता है, जबकि उन्हें अपने समय का प्रयोग व्यक्तिगत प्रयासों हेतु करना चाहिए। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सुषमा जी, और बहुत अच्छे से आपने किया। आगे लेट अस क्विकली हैव अ क्विक डिस्कशन बिकॉज बहुत वी ऑलरेडी पास टाइम, बट आई सी very dedicatedly our listeners are listening. So I see Shinde ji, please, most welcome. You can add something to today's teaching.
हेलो मैडम, नमस्कार। विभा जी,
नमस्ते सर।
मैडम डिसाइपलशिप के पाथ पे चलते चलते कुछ लोग सुसाइड कर लेते हैं, क्या कारण हो सकता है?
That we discussed about, there is that occult law. The moment you offer yourself for chelaship, everything which is latent in your subconscious, it will come to the surface. And mentally, the coordination between the mental level and the physical level, that goes for a toss. That is insanity. Insanity means your physical or your personality is not coordinating your mental level, your what you are doing at the mental level. So people of the society, they will say that, oh, see, he is mad because he behaves like that. So when this happens, when that occult law, it throws everything that is latent within you to the surface. So this thing can happen. Insanity can happen to a person.
Yes, Shinde ji, now you can add your point.
Vibhaji, congratulations. Very nice, you have explained.
Thank you,
Nothing to
sir.
add in it. Actually, the question was asked, why one suicides? So, such questions cannot be answered actually. It is all individual decision. He has right to end his life. So, in that sense, when he is not able to discriminate or take the right decision, he will end his life. There are many people who end their life, and it is individual action, but it is completely abandoned in the spiritual path. When you have entered the path, you must endure up to the end, whatever may be the difficulty. And that best example you gave, that is of Murad Ali Beg. He is known as the GM. GM is short form of that. That also you showed that one. And this Murad Ali Beg, masters have given this example because his life, if we see, he was a first Mohammedan, and then when he came in contact with the H.P. Blavatsky, he was impressed by the theosophical teaching. He became an earnest theosophist. He developed his qualities. He became up to chelaship also. But again, don't know what happened. What happened means, again, masters have answered this, that those qualities are not yet matured in him. And therefore, he did the wrong thing. Again, he entered into the Christianship. He became the church monastery, and again he came back to the Islamic. Finally, he became a drunkard, and finally suicided. This is what his history. So difficult, even if he has reached to that end. He end his life in this way. This example is given by the masters only because it shows self-reliance is the key. And as Vibhaji rightly pointed out, heart and intentions need to be pure. Heart needs to be pure, our intentions need to be pure, and our thirst must be so intense. Our work must be so tireless, and our waiting must be without end. And calling must be from the higher mind, not the lower mind. That means with wholehearted. So within such totality of man, hints are given and you are selected. So what we must remember here, as I am not adding anything, Vibhaji has explained very well. Self-reliance is the key. And self-awareness and insight of one's own nature is important. It needs to be self-discovery. First, you discover yourself, then again progressively you discover, then again completely you discover yourself. And one who discovers himself, when all things are right, then he is said to be enlightened one. And he is selected as Chela, means it is a law. The Guru comes to you if the disciple is ready. And this is what enlightened one discovers himself all things rightly. So suicide, etc., it is a wrong thing, especially in theosophy. Even if you have a right to end your life, but it is not accepted. We must endure up to the end. This is what I want to add. But Vibhaji, I really appreciate the way of Vibhaji. She is a good professor. All references to give, all references with correct. Nobody will take objection what she says. Thank you, Vibhaji, and thank you, Vimalji, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, all of you, for attending very patiently. Thank you, Vibhaji. And let's all join together in the closing prayer now. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all.